Today we're going to be talking about some of the features of generalized anxiety disorder and how it differs from regular, everyday worry. Hi everyone. Generalized anxiety disorder is a common and very challenging condition associated with excessive, difficult to control worry. But how do you know if you have generalized anxiety disorder or if it's just normal, everyday worry that everyone experiences? In today's video, we're going to be talking about some of the differences between regular garden variety worry and the types of worries you find in generalized anxiety disorder. But before I get into that, just a couple of disclaimers to go over. I'm a registered psychologist in the province of British Columbia, Canada, and this video is for informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute or replacement for advice from your doctor or mental health professional. Now, with those things out of the way, let's start talking about generalized anxiety disorder. Now, I've done a series of videos on generalized anxiety disorder before, as well as a 14-part deep dive into a number of tools and skills that a person can use to manage symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder. So if you're interested in this topic and want to learn a lot more, I'd encourage you to check those videos out. Now, at its core, generalized anxiety disorder is associated with excessive anxiety and worry about a number of different topics like work, school, finances, health and well-being, relationships, social interactions, community and world affairs, or even minor matters like getting chores done or punctuality, things like getting places on time. Now notice, these are things that everyone tends to worry about from time to time. So it's not the content of the worries that are particularly special or notable in generalized anxiety disorder. These worries are worries that we all tend to have from time to time. So the worries in generalized anxiety disorder aren't bizarre or strange worries. Worries or fears of being abducted by aliens. So it's not that type of thing. But rather, these worries tend to be about the same topics that everyone worries about. But there are a number of ways in which generalized anxiety disorder worry tends to differ from your regular garden variety types of worry. And first of all, the worry in generalized anxiety disorder tends to be quite time consuming. People with GAD tend to worry for significant chunks of time, nearly every day. When I'm working with people with generalized anxiety disorder, I often ask them to provide me a percentage of how much of their day that they typically spend worrying. And it's not uncommon for them to tell me that they spend up to 50 or 70% of their day worrying about one thing or the other. So it may not be one thing that they're worrying about, but their mind goes from one worry to the other, and they're spending 50 to 70% of their day thinking about these things. Another big difference between generalized anxiety disorder worry and your regular garden variety type of worry is that worry in generalized anxiety disorder tends to be much more difficult to control. Now, we've all had the experience where we start worrying about something. But in non-generalized anxiety disorder worry, we're able to push those worries out of our mind and focus on other things we're trying to do. But in generalized anxiety disorder worry, once you start worrying about a topic or a series of topics, it becomes really difficult to get your mind off of those worries. It can feel almost impossible to stop worrying about it. It becomes distracting when you're trying to do other things, and the worry just gets in the way of everything you're trying to focus on. I describe these types of worries as sticky, almost like once you start thinking about them, they get stuck inside your brain and it's hard for you to get away from them. The worry process in generalized anxiety disorder also tends to be more pervasive, and it involves a lot of different topics. And this tends to be one of the big differentiating features between generalized anxiety disorder and other anxiety conditions. So, for example, in social anxiety, it's very common for people to worry excessively about their social interactions. However, that tends to be the main topic of their worry, and they tend not to worry excessively about other topics like finances or health or whether they locked their car door. However, in generalized anxiety disorder worry, the person tends to experience excessive worry about a wide range of topics, so that it seems like almost nothing is safe and everything is something to potentially worry about. And this wide scope of worries tends to be one of the most significant differentiating factors between generalized anxiety disorder worry and your garden variety worries or worries that you find in other anxiety disorders. In generalized anxiety disorder, the worries tend to be more out of proportion to what's actually happening in the current situation. It's not uncommon for a person with generalized anxiety disorder to think about and focus on the worst case scenarios and the catastrophic outcomes. Typical non-GAD worry tends not to go down the rabbit hole as far in terms of all of the awful things that could happen or how bad the situation could potentially get. Another key differentiating feature in generalized anxiety disorder is the chronicity of the worry. Now, in generalized anxiety disorder, the worrying isn't something that happens for just short periods of time or short episodes of worry. It tends to be much more prolonged and consistent worrying. And as a result, people with generalized anxiety disorder can experience a variety of associated physical symptoms resulting from their chronic, ongoing worry. So these are things like a general sense of restlessness, difficulty concentrating, fatigue, being really tired, irritability, having a short fuse, high levels of muscle tension, and difficulty sleeping. You tend not to see as many of these types of problems in people who don't worry with the same intensity or frequency compared to people with generalized anxiety disorder. In generalized anxiety disorder, the worry tends to be very distressing and interferes with important areas of a person's life, like work or school performance, their social activities, or their general ability to enjoy what they're doing. You don't tend to see this level of interference in non-generalized anxiety disorder worry. So those are some of the differences between GAD worry and your typical garden variety types of worries. So what I want to talk about now is some of the characteristics, some of the features, and some of the facts about GAD. It's a very common condition. During any one year period, approximately 3% of the population experiences generalized anxiety disorder. And about 5% of the population will have generalized anxiety disorder at some point in their life. So this isn't an uncommon condition, as about 1 in 20 people will experience generalized anxiety disorder at some point in their lives. Generalized anxiety disorder tends to be more common in women than in men, as about 2/3 of people with GAD are women. It's not uncommon for people to develop generalized anxiety disorder in their childhood, and I've had a number of clients tell me that they've been worriers or they've been worrying excessively their whole life. So they see it as something that they've always done, that's always been there. But for other clients, their tendency to worry excessively began after a major stressful life event, like a motor vehicle accident, an assault, or a significant relationship breakup or divorce. People with generalized anxiety disorder also tend to experience other types of anxiety or mood problems as well. About 2/3 of people with generalized anxiety disorder will experience an additional they'll experience an additional anxiety or mood problem. And about 50% of people, so half of the people with GAD, will also experience clinically significant depression. And some people wonder how this happens, why there's this association between generalized anxiety disorder and depression. Well, it's usually the case that it's the excessive, difficult to control, excessive worry of generalized anxiety disorder that results in ongoing distress and interference in a person's life, which then results in feelings of demoralization and exhaustion, right? So if all I'm thinking about is all the negative things that are going to happen in my life and I can never look forward to anything good happening, that's going to drive my mood down and going to leave me feeling kind of demoralized or exhausted, and that can contribute to feelings of depression. Now, because people with generalized anxiety disorder often perceive themselves to be worriers, what often happens is that they assume that excessive worrying is just part of their personality. It's just part of who they are, and as a result, can't be changed. And so this can often result in people with generalized anxiety disorder not seeking help for their worry, as they just view it as a part of who they are. And this is really unfortunate, because what this means is that it results in people with generalized anxiety disorder suffering needlessly when there are really effective treatments that can help. So I hope this video has been helpful in terms of further detailing some of the features and characteristics of generalized anxiety disorder and explaining how GAD worry tends to differ from your typical everyday worries. I'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have about this, so please leave me some comments in the comments section down below. If you've been enjoying my videos and would like to see more, please hit that subscribe button and notification bell, and you'll be alerted every week when I post a new video. So that's all for today's video. As always, thank you for making it all the way to the end of this video, and I will see you in the next one.